Dear friends, 70 against sticks go. Sorry that I am not playing. 70 anti-stick Rio sit. Spring, can spring be restored? Dear friends, next to the old people, it's called a tall tree. For some people in old age, there are more bad temperaments. Maybe they didn't before. The land of old people when they are old. You should know how to set an example for your children. But not everyone understands. There are old people who are not happy. Instead of old age, they fall back into the pleasures of the dead, suffering for the whole family. At this age, they should be blessed for the afterlife. But the opposite of momentary self-indulgence, make them a burden to your children. I'd like to invite you and your listen to the short story that follows. Quine Wong wishing you and your friends. There are moments when listening to stories is relaxing. The afternoon sky is falling, but the air inside his house is still noisy. Excited laughter said. The sound of VA chopsticks and the music echoed through the little neighborhood. Outside his sister's grandmother. To rush to the front door, his face flushed with anger. She couldn't believe her eyes. When you see the scene in front of you. In the yard, Mr. Coy, wearing a dashing suit. Standing next to her was a woman between 4 and 5 years old. Wearing a long red corset. It seems ridiculous given her age. No one else is Mrs. The woman he has just announced will remarry. In front of them was a big party. What is a luxury table and chair arrangement? Which is the camera? The camera was hired to capture the important moment. But this party is not a family party. There's no presence of brothers and sisters in the house. Around the party table, Mr. Coy's gambling friends, with some debtors and some unscrupulous people drinking, laughing and talking loudly. They seemed familiar with her. Every time she laughed and showed off her white porcelain teeth. Just as we finished, some of them clapped and laughed. The chaotic scene, completely different with the luxurious atmosphere of an engagement. She's actually standing there choking with anger. Eyes wide open with wonder and 7 hopes. Your brother is old. Why do we even organize things like this? Even worse, all the brothers in the house were not invited. The only reason, you know, because they were so strongly against this marriage. Remember a week ago, he called the whole family to his house for a family meeting. He was sitting in the living room, serious face, eyes look around. He was determined and declared, "You've decided to remarry. How happy you were when your daughter married you. I wonder if this time I will celebrate." No one can believe in their ears. His sister was the first to speak. "What are you old and married to? Who you marry. He looked at his sister with a cup of tea. "You know I can marry a woman, not a man." Ju said, "Don't tell me you married the village girl." People are whispering, "She's a bitch." You listen to that jump up, "Oh my God." Everyone knows she's out all the time. Dress revealing. Men are late every night. You're married to raise your leopard. Juju also could not keep quiet his worried voice. Brother Coy. The whole village also knows the sound of Mrs. Van Dizzy playing lazy. Don't be alone and make the wrong decision. But you don't want to hear. His face darkened with a steel voice. You don't understand anything. Everyone has the right to be happy. No matter how old I am, I know what I need. I don't need AI to teach me how to live anymore. The whole family was silent about his strong attitude. No matter what advice you give, you will not listen. Finally, too ashamed to be angry, he stood up, kicked everyone back to their mouths. I'm not going to invite anyone in this house. Those who don't support it don't have to come. She is passionate. I can't stand seeing my brother like that. Unhugging up. I don't know why. The old man had 2 heads of hair and arranged to marry her with the little ones who lost their way. Then he tricked the white dress out. I remember that moment, Tim. No one can believe that he is old. To get caught up in this playful marriage. And worse, you're deliberately cutting off all interference from your family. Come back to the present, silent. In front of a repulsive scene, you can't stop yourself from going inside. Walking through the crowd of unscrupulous people, every step she took was heavy. He was determined not to let his brother go on. Your mistake, Koi. Her voice choked with anger and pain. You organized this game without inviting an eye in the house. The whole family warned me, and you still won't listen. He turned to look at his sister. Dark face but trying to stay calm. This is my business. I don't need a teacher. Her gentle grandmother led to purple-faced, trembling voice. You're old. I don't think for myself. You also have to think about your children. What's the music in this neighborhood? People thought the guy was married. Not that his father is old. There's more blood than you. He was angry and did not respond. Some people in the band, they're laughing. People around you start paying attention, but no one dared to say anything. Only Mrs. Van stood by and walked over to Chun between the two brothers. I think you're boss, I think. It's our own thing. You have no right to interfere. If you don't like it, go home. No one forced you to come to this party. She turned to look at Mrs. You think I don't know who you are? After a few months, the whole neighborhood won. Don't you think I don't understand that you are taking advantage of me? Mrs. Van smirked sarcastically. I'm here to take care of you. What can you do? You can look around, but I don't care. He walked up to his face, flushed with anger. That's enough, buddy. If you don't want to bless me, go home. I don't want I to ruin my day. She looked at her brother bitterly. She turned her back and walked out the gate. In my heart, I am sad and angry. The 70-year-old groom is Koi. Used to be a famous person in the wood village in Hadong. Your family is well off. And Mr. and Mrs. Snow are the women who take care of everything in the house. From rice to water to teaching children. You're busy with big contracts. Money just flows in like water. Make good money. But Koi poured it all into entertainment. Especially gambling. Day he's invested in wood projects. Back in the evening, rolling around in the silver fields. Whereas gambling at the time was not just entertainment. It's a way for you to assert yourself. He often boasted to his friends that you have the right to play, the right to spend money, because you're the one who got it. Money the night before. The next day, they're all in red and black. The fun never ends. Mrs. Snow repeatedly advised her husband to stop. But her words, it's like the wind blowing through Koi's ears. Every time she spoke, he yelled out loud. You are useless. What can you do other than spend my money? Don't interfere in my business. The Snow is silent. Swallow the tears inside. Many times she tried to take me away, but look straight south. She kept telling herself to try for me. And let that algal woman end up sick. When she died, Koi is still engrossed in the game all night. When I got the news you had. But the funeral, it doesn't change your life either. After his wife died, Koi further slid in the road of gambling. The estate is exhausted. Every piece of land. The factory was sold to pay off the debt. Nam is your only child. Different from Dad, Nam has been a hard-working child since childhood. Later, when growing up, Mail graduated from a good university. Hunted by many corporations. He also had a dream to work abroad. But that dream was extinguished by his own father. Year Mail out of school, he got an invitation from a big textile company with the opportunity to work abroad. High salary opportunity for promotion. This is exactly what Nam has wanted for a long time. But when you talk to your dad, he decided to leave. The hospital has enough reasons. There are only 2 of us. Your mother is dead. You go now. I know who to live with. I'm an old man with a stomachache and depression. I don't know. If you go, I'll get sick. Nam stood silent before his father's words. It's a great opportunity, a dream that I've cherished for so long. But you can't leave him alone. Filial piety and responsibility. He made the decision to give up everything. You continue to stay in Hanoi. Find a job near your home to take care of your dad. Over the next few months, Nam worked hard. I know my father is not the same. I still send money every month. Let him have money to spend on life. But gradually, Mail realize the money you send is not just for you. It's about keeping up old habits. Even if there is no gambling, but he's still looking for new joys. Old age comes. He no longer has the strength to pursue gambling, the red and black battles of old. It's just a memory now, but he didn't give up the habit of extravagance. At first, you knew how to keep it in check, send money back to get through the day. But more and more, he felt lonely and empty. You need that, and you need new joy. And that's when she showed up. She is a 45-year-old white widow. The figure is quite flamboyant dress, more so than the other women in the neighborhood. She moved to this neighborhood not long ago. Immediately became the focus of the neighborhood gossip. They say she's a very clever mouth. The mood is lackluster, but no one knows what you do. I know you live alone. Sometimes I see some men visiting. Meet Mr. Coy. She immediately realized that this was the ideal target. He's got some money back alone, and most importantly, he desperately needs a woman by his side. Ms. Van quickly approached by showing kindness. Take care of him gently. With you is a new wind. An old age pleasure that you thought you'd never have. One late afternoon, when you're re-cleaning in front of the house, she's still cycling by. The car is old, but decorated. With all kinds of plastic cotton, she greeted him with a bright smile. Hello, Mr. Coy. I'm Van from nearby. It must be sad to see you sitting alone. Mr. Coy was surprised. Stop your hands and look. She was present with a flamboyant dress. Dark chalk, but the face still looks fresh. Hello, miss. I'm alone. You know my name. He was a little confused. God, this whole neighborhood doesn't know you. Used to be a big wood owner. People around you all talk about you, but now you seem so lonely. That's old age. When someone is next to you, you can't see it. It's sad to be alone. She spoke softly in a sympathetic voice. Mr. Coy is silent. It's a bit embarrassing, but it's shared. Who do you live with? He asked. My husband is alone too. So I know you're seen. Mrs. Van stepped closer and put her hands on the wooden gate. It looks more friendly. I see the wind has changed these days. Are you afraid of getting sick if you live alone? If an old person is sick, there is no one around. I heard that, he sighed. It's sad too, miss. My children go to work far away from me. Van skillfully transferred the story sweet as honey. I think this age, we just need people to take care of each other. Love is the most precious. Life is short. Being alive should be fun. You have to love yourself. Coy felt his heart soften. For the first time in years of solitude, someone talks to you like that. Since that day, she has been coming to the house, bring you some small food. Some meals are cooked for you to eat. She appeared in his life in a surprising way, like a wind blowing into his lonely life. You're not a gentle woman, like the woman you once met. On the contrary, Mrs. Van exudes a slutty charm that any Azay looks at as easily recognizable. But with Mr. Coy, it's an extraordinary attraction. She always knows how to take care of herself. From her fragile pajamas showing off her white skin, my hair always smells of water. That evening, he sat in front of a plate of rice that she had just prepared. The meal is simple. There are only a few dishes, but they are neatly arranged. She came out of the kitchen, 8-piece handle, a gentle but trying gesture. She meant to wear a thin 2-string tang shirt, shorts also playfully flexible walk. I want to show off what I feel most. I invite you to dinner. Her voice was soft, charming, smiling red lips. He was confused. But her eyes couldn't leave her figure. Mrs. Van knows that, and deliberately bent down. 8 plates in front of you. to reveal bare shoulders and smooth skin. His eyes suddenly returned. My heart beats faster when I look at her. I'll try what you cook to see if it tastes good. She gave him the chopstick. Your voice is soft enough and challenging enough. Koi picked up the chopsticks, nodding. But it's a mess inside. You know there's something in your heart. That's not true, but he ignored it all. Just have that AI by your side. Just not being alone is enough. The meal is not long, but full of eyes. Van's calculated gesture. Every time you try to say something, she blinked and laughed again, then gently touched her hand on your shoulder. His eyes looked as if he wanted to say something further. When you finish eating, let me clean you up. I'm worried about you. He sat quietly watching her walk around the house, graceful gait full of charm. People say what they can, but with you, Mrs. Van was the first. It makes you feel like life is flowing. Even though I know something is hard to understand. But the rumors about her never stopped. But he deliberately ignored it. Late at night, she sat next to him on the sofa. It's starting to get cold. She pulled up the thin blanket, slightly leaning on his sweet voice. I know you're lonely as I am. My whole life, I've never found anyone who cares about me like you do. Mrs. Van finished speaking. Glittering eyes looked at Mr. Koi. Soft hands on his hands. He was shy but felt warm. The feeling of being interested by that IA, even if it's just a stranger, makes you unable to resist. Late at night, go to bed early. Her voice is still sweet, as gently as pouring honey into the ear. In a small circle of quiet space, there was only a soft wind outside the window. The breath is of both. The golden nightlight flashed on the faint lines on the old face. Anyway of Mr. Koi. It makes you seem like you're thinking, but the eyes couldn't hide the expectation. She moved closer, glimpsing silhouette in a thin nightgown. Slowly sit down next to you. Her long hair softly flowed down her bare shoulders, making her smallest movements, as if it contained tenderness and subtlety. Her eyes turned to him, not in a hurry but slowly. Softcore, as if to tell him that she understood everything he needed. You're tired, aren't you? Her voice whispered, more like a confession than a question. He nodded softly. There is no room in your heart for fatigue. It's just a little bit of warmth. At an age near the sky, he no longer felt the hangover of youth, but respect every moment with a woman, even if it's not perfect love. She lightly touched his shoulder. Soft hands move up. The face is full of wrinkles. His eyes seemed to sink in that moment. Her hands brought a feeling. You haven't experienced it in a long time. It's not physical passion, it's intimacy. The connection of two lonely people finding each other. Her breath passed, close enough for him to feel his presence. The presence you need. With you here, I'll never be alone again. Mrs. Van's words were gentle, but in there, it contains what you want to hear. Want to believe. She leaned softly against his chest with her eyes half closed, smooth skin pressed on. It makes your heart feel warm. The feeling of warm breathing, of gentle intimacy that made him forget his age, forget about vague worries about the future. His breath slowly died down. His heart was filled with comfort, the warmth that he had long lacked. Every time I saw my brother close to her, she felt her heart was strangled. You know she doesn't love you. But Ms. Van's meticulous ingenuity, it made him sink deep. Each stroke, every lie of her sweetness. It all makes you more blind. Why did you let yourself be fooled? She used to tell her brother in a choking voice. She doesn't love you. She's just using you. You don't see why. But Mr. Koi only sighed, her eyes avoiding her sister's gaze. Let me ask you to live. Can someone live for me? You hear that and your heart hurts. Your brother knows everything. I can't escape from her sweet trap. Mr. Coy, no longer the strong, determined man of old. Now he's just a weak old man. I'm PRISONED. You voluntarily entered. She moved quickly into his life. As a natural thing, he started spending money on shopping for food, and even took her on a trip. Neighbors around talking in and out, but you don't care. Nam goes to work far away, just passing through the rumors of uncles in the family, that your father is getting older and worse. Take that shit home alive. I was sad enough to call my father many times. Mr. Coy just added Lou to the speakers. I'm lonely and you work all the time, and this house is just me with the shadow. How long have I lived like this? Now I have someone to take care of my friends. If you can't worry, let someone else worry. Nam could not say anything else but quietly sent money. Let him live stably. I don't care if I worry about you. From that day, she started at the house as the real owner. She often asked him to buy things, and then the excuse to take him out to eat far away, because he was so absorbed in her care. I don't regret money, even if it's all South Korean money. One morning, the woman sitting next to him kept her mouth shut, just chatting. She looked at the phone in tears. Suddenly, she stopped holding his hand. I think I should go on a vacation. My whole life has been hard. I'm old enough to let myself relax. I know a very nice resort in Dalat. It's fresh and quiet, suitable for old people like you. He laughed but was a little confused. Dalat also likes, but money's been a little tight these days. The woman's lips looked angry. What do you think I want with your money? I just want you to be happy. If you don't like it, I won't force it. I thought we were living together. We have to take care of each other. When he saw her sad, he changed his voice in a hurry to comfort her. Not. If you want to go, I'm not sorry. As long as you're happy. So they went van book tickets to choose luxury hotels. Spend no pity hand. Coy didn't think much either. Even though the money sent back from South Vietnam is slowly diminishing. I thought she really cared. But in fact, she just took advantage of his gullibility to enjoy. Sometimes Nam calls about father worried voice. Dad, is everything okay at home? He laughed over the phone. I'm fine. Someone's taking care of him. Don't worry, just take care of your business. Don't meddle in my own business. Nam has not been able to say more. Mr. Coy has opened the machine. Change his father's mind. Continue sending money back every month. Let him have a stable life. Avoid falling into the same gambling scene as before. In my heart I take care of. But outside of busy work, I can't take care of my father directly. In the neighborhood, AI also is the truth. She's becoming more and more clear about her intentions. He constantly asks you to pay for the money. Spend lavishly. When the season was over, shopping for clothes took him to a restaurant. Once his sister's grandmother came by the house. My husband and I have just traveled back. He called out to Ra in an alert voice. You see, this woman is not a nice person. You're old. Don't let people fool you. I mean it. The whole neighborhood knows what kind of person she is. Mr. Coy frowned annoyingly. Just leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. Don't interfere in my business. She looked straight at her brother. If you don't wake up, you will suffer. Don't let it be time to lose everything before you know you've been cheated. But he lied. He believes that she really loves him. Advice from your grandmother or neighbor doesn't make you move. After a while, she came out of the house, sitting on the porch, wearing a flamboyant reptile dress. The blinding color doesn't match the age at all. Ms. Van put her feet on the chair and trimmed her nails. Your face is relaxed. In his house, he was ready to return the cake. It's no different than serving her. My grandmother stood outside. Look at that scene and get angry. I have to work hard day and night to send money back, and his brother is stupid at home serving Mrs. Van. How much I love you so much. My grandmother can't control it anymore. Walk straight into the house. What kind of house is this? The old lady spoke in a loud voice full of anger. He looked up at his grimaced face. When I saw my sister come into the house, Miss Van is still sitting still. The nail trimmer looks distracted. I don't care about my grandmother. If you have nothing to do, go home. He said in an exasperated voice, not respond to Mr. Coy. She glanced straight at Mrs. Van and raised her voice. You can dress like this. I couldn't worry about anything. They spend their money all the time here. Man goes to work hard to feed 2 people. You think you can eat without sitting and use it comfortably. She kept a cold face. I don't want to look back. I just flashed my jaw. You are my sister-in-law, not my mother-in-law. I'm here with you. It's our business. Don't stare all day. If you don't like it, go home. I didn't borrow it. She was so angry that she did not expect to be so confused. She pointed straight at her face, her voice filled with grief. Don't think I don't know what kind of person you are. You're just good at stealing this house. I eat and spend my nephew's money. Who do you think you are to spend so lavishly? Don't think I'll leave you lying forever. Mrs. Van heard a faint smile and turned to respond immediately. I'm here to take care of you. You just act like I'm a parasite. You're not here. Don't judge us if you don't understand our feelings. I didn't touch Nam's money. Worry about the house. Just don't interfere with other people forever. He stood up now with a gay red face, hands down on the table. That's enough. Go home. Don't come here and mess up my house. She turned to him with a voice full of 7 hopes. Are you that blind? You let it take advantage of you without knowing it. My son makes money, and you're here to treat her like a queen. You live like this and then you wake up. The more angry he became. How I live is my business. If you are me, don't get involved. She looked at Mr. His eyes were both compassionate and angry, but knowing more is useless. She turned her back and walked out of the house full of bitterness. Your brother is becoming more and more enchanted. Go to the gate. She took a deep breath and told herself she couldn't. Stand and watch forever. I'm sure you'll have to come back. But today, you know it doesn't change anything. In his house, Coy sat down in a chair still angry. Mrs. Van saw that gently sitting down next to flattering. Don't pay attention to what she says. Miss Heen doesn't understand anything. I only know how to look at others. I really care about you every little bit. But I can only judge. You hear that with a sigh. Leave her alone. Don't care. Even if there is a little tension in my heart, you still try to shake off your pride. The patriarchal me. Don't allow yourself to think you're being cheated. I still believe in your sweet words. Ignore the warnings from your own sister. One morning, man gets a call from an old acquaintance of father. The person's voice seemed worried. Nam, how is your father these days? I met him at the bar the other day. You said you needed an urgent loan. I thought you had something important to borrow. But he said he'll use the money for her. Not to worry about family. I'm so worried. Call me in advance. Man sits in a daze after the phone call, his mind spinning. Loans money for Mrs. My heart is heavy. Many times, Nam tried to stop his father from getting deep into Ms. Van's games, but he is still blind. I feel more and more helpless. Before my father's change, Nam rushed home that afternoon. The house was as usual quiet and empty. Mrs. Van is lying on the sofa. Hands her phone. Coy is making tea. He looked up at his face a little embarrassed. Why didn't you tell me to pick you up? Nam looked straight at Coy in a deep but heavy voice. My dad just heard my uncle say I'm going to borrow money. Is it true that you are borrowing money to give it to her? Coy Kuwang turned his face, but quickly turned away. Try to avoid. It's a small thing, don't worry. I can worry. I also need some money to pay off my debt. I won't be there later. I hear that Nam can't help it anymore. I stepped in front of a louder voice. I don't even understand she's taking advantage of me. How many years have you collected your money? She spent it all. Now I'm borrowing money to pay her back. Are you thinking about me? She sat there and heard Nam speak and stood up, eyes glaring at you. Man, you are too much. Whatever I do, I live with your father. Your father and I are still alive. What right do you have to interfere? I'm worried about your father's every meal and sleep. I don't understand anything. Nam turned to Mrs. Van, voice could no longer control. You took advantage of my father's trust. Take this family's money. You think I don't know? The whole neighborhood is clear. You just want to take all my father's money. The whole neighborhood knows you just want to take all the money and leave. Don't wake up angry. Man, stop it. You take care of me, and what do you know? You're away from work all day. I'm sick. You only think for yourself. Kohi's words are like a dagger in the heart of Nam. I just think about why. Man tries to suppress emotions. Turn your face so as not to see my angry eyes. Your father gave up so many things just to worry about you. I don't know why. Nam said, his voice dropped in pain. Your chance for advancement. How many times do I have to refuse because of you? Don't you see why? Koi is still full of anger, not to let Nam say it all. Stop it. I don't need to know. Now I'm worried about me. You don't have to do anything. She stood next to me, smiling to be pleased. Put your hand gently on your shoulder. Deliberately add sauce and salt. Stop being angry. He's young. He probably doesn't understand. Just let me worry. It's enough for you. Nam looked at that scene, only bitter. How much have you sacrificed for this family? But he was eventually pushed out by his own father. He took a deep breath and nodded. A calm voice, but a decision in my heart. Dad, if you didn't need me to worry anymore, I won't interfere anymore. But I'm telling the truth. If anything happens later, don't call me. He turned his back and walked away. This is the guy standing in the middle of the house. The mouth has not closed yet. That night Nam was busy working. Try to complete the unfinished project. The phone suddenly rings. The phone screen shows his father's name. Nam paused for a few seconds, a heart full of wonder. When I think about previous stressful times, but in the end, I pressed the call button. Mr. Koi's voice faintly echoed from the other end of the line. I haven't been to see my father in a long time. I was startled, trying to stay calm. I kicked you out of the house last time. His voice cracked, a little displeased. I told you right away, that's what you believe. Nam laughed softly, but can't hide a little bitterness in my heart. To be honest, I know what you mean. He seemed dissatisfied with the heavy voice. This guy, you can't be anything like Daddy. Male frown, but I couldn't hold back my anger for so long. It's like trying to hurt a lot of people. The air becomes tense for a moment, but he sighed and did not want to argue anymore. It's you. I called to tell you I've been feeling weak lately. It hurts everywhere. I'm afraid I won't make it. Nam immediately frowned. The anxiety was evident on the face. I've seen my father say things like that many times, but every time I'm scared. I take a deep breath. My feet are still. I haven't been to the hospital yet. Koi immediately lamented. Going to the hospital costs a lot of money. Just let me die at home. Man tries to suppress wide emotions full of anxiety. Why did you say that? People are important. Money is external. I tried to wait for you to come back. Nam just shut down in his heart, full of anxiety, and planned to book a ticket home right away. But over there, Koi hung up the phone and laughed happily, turned to Mrs. Van. Did you see that? This guy is so good. He said he'll be back soon. I have to pretend to be more ill this time to ask for less money. She laughed and agreed. That's right, spend less of it. It brings money for girls. It makes a lot of money without spending it. They both looked at each other laughing. I didn't think about Nam's fear. Fake sick tricks, lying about your health just to get your money. That men are not just tired of the material burden, but they're also fooled by a twisted family bond. Nam tried to arrange busy work to take care of him. I always think of the word hospitality, but the more I care, the heavier I feel. You don't just require care. It's also becoming more demanding. He always asked Nam to do one thing after another, without any sympathy for my son's busy work. Nam just got home in the morning and did not have time to rest. Mr. Koi was grumpy from the gazebo room. Daddy's thirsty, go make some tea. And the blanket, I'm cold. You get another blanket. Nam quickly and do according to the father. Less than 10 minutes later, he called out again, his voice full of anger. What about my milk? You left me waiting all morning for nothing. Are you going to let me starve to death? Man is both tired and stressed because of work, but I dare not resist, silently serving my father. But in the heart of the 7 hopes and the pressure is growing. Your words have been rounded, but his relentless demands. I have no time for myself. That evening, Man is sitting in front of the computer, folding work for agency. He cried out in pain. He had to quit his job to get a massage. Nam hurried to stop doing quietly follow, but inside like a smoldering fire. Daddy, please let me finish my work. Can you wait a moment? Nam said, try to suppress fatigue. He was immediately angry. It hurts you to leave me alone. Are you still watching Ra? You have to worry about me first. Nam doesn't know what else to say. They only bite their teeth. She should have worried about him too. Again citing illness, continuously denied responsibility. She always said she was dizzy. The family couldn't take care of him and left everything to Cho Nam. Another time when Nam was in a hurry to prepare the document to give a presentation tomorrow morning, he called out again. Nam, quit your job. Take Daddy for a scan. I've got a headache. Nam stopped thinking for a moment and said, Dad, I'll wait a moment for you to finish. Take me back. No, I want to go now. He slammed his hands on the bed. If you don't take me, I'll go see for myself when I fall. Do you regret it? He looked at me full of contradictions. I love my father and want to be responsible. But the relentless demands and activities of Mr. Koi. South Africa has no time for my own life. Nam is struggling with work on the computer, and Mr. Koi continues to grumble. Nam had to quit his job to take him to the doctor. The air in the house becomes tense. A confused man doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, the grandmother appeared from nowhere. Walk into the house with determination. Man, just work so I can take your father to see Cho. Your father is old. I can't bother you forever. When he heard that, he turned back and refused immediately. Miss Heen, you don't have to take me anywhere. Let Nam take you. It's your son who has to take care of you. Grinning grandmother. His voice was sarcastic but still calm. Let me worry about you. You have to take care of me properly. He is busy with thousands of jobs. You can ask for it forever. Get in the car, I'll drive you. Don't let him protest quickly. Hand pulled him out of the car. He scratched his face, reluctant to wear a helmet, and climbed on my grandmother's motorcycle. Man watching Theo. I am both worried and embarrassed, but also feel relieved when she gently carried some of her. On the road, she drove at just enough speed, but suddenly increased Gaya-Zun to segment. It made him panic, clinging to her waist. Face re-meter. You slow down. You're going too fast. When she heard that, she pressed the brake. The car swayed so that he almost fell over. Don't worry, I drive well. Just go this way. It's cool. She laughed as if laughing. Then she deliberately took a shortcut, lead him through the rough village roads. The buffalo's pothole was filled with. He sat in the back, endlessly swaying, grayish face with dizziness. Every time the car jumps up, he cringes in the wind. Hold your hand tight to the lady. The rough road made him even more confused, his mind spinning, his heart pounding with fear. Sometimes she speeds up, through the long fields, soaring through the red dirt roads. You have no strength to resist, sweating all over the end. Koi can't stand it anymore. Dry mouth, blurred eyes, and shouted. Miss Heen stopped. I can't take it anymore. I'm dizzy. Let me out of the car. Braking the car on the side of the road, he just walked down and vomited. Your face is wobbling. After vomiting, Koi turned to scold her, gentle voice full of anger. Are you deliberately playing me? You're going to kill me on the road, aren't you? She replied in a soft voice, but no less ironic. I think you're so tired of your mind. I should get you out here. Just let the wind in your brain a little bit. It's nothing I'm worried about. Koi led to a 3-peng face purple tie. I lost this teaching. You're making me sick. I'm not sick. Grinning grandmother. Then you don't pretend to worry about your health. Don't hurt your children. It's plowing day and night out there to feed this whole house. He stood still and said no more words, just sitting there breathing hard. Her words made him start to feel bad. Even though my heart is full of anger, I got the news from the agency. I'll take over the management position. Foreign branch parties go for BA years. Nam was happy to tell Koi, but Van sat there looking at Nam with a calculating look, then sighed softly. Come on, honey. My father is very weak and I want to go abroad. If I leave you at home, who cares? The old man won't live long. You've got to think about Daddy. The man looked from Mrs. Van to him. I wake up in doubt. But I don't want to believe it's true. I can't stay here forever, Dad. I've just been promoted to work abroad. This is your chance. You've got to go. Male voice mixed with a little begging. He sat up with red eyes, angry. If you go, your father dies. You left me like that. All these years you've been worried about me. You're going to leave me now. Don't go south. You're the only one. To startle people, my whole life, I've always tried to be responsible to you. But now when the opportunity to dream is right in front of you, he used his family's love to bind him. Once again he looked at father, feeling helpless to invade. She added words as if pouring into his ears. Koi, your father is right, Nam. My father is sick. I'm leaving like this. A van care. Old people without children are miserable. You have to think about it. Don't leave him. You're the only son. Hearing those words, he became even more angry. You go. I swear I'll die. I'll show you I can't live. Man choked, his heart heavy. But this time I'm tired. I sacrificed years for my father, but it can't go on forever. Dad, I know you're worried, but I can't miss this opportunity. Dad is fine. I can take care of you for 3 years. He suddenly woke up, banging hands down the table, screaming. If you go, Dad dies. If you want to go, go, but don't ever come back to see me again. You are unkind. Koi Luo left the house and ran straight to the riverbank, where he would threaten to kill himself whenever something big happened. She panicked and worried, but the eyes flashed with secret joy. Nam stood as dead. My heart is filled with unspeakable pain. Neighbors were upset when they heard he threatened to commit suicide. AI also knows that Mr. Koi's stubborn patriarch. But this time the situation looks serious. Some people came to bring him back, but he kept crying for death. His sister's grandmother heard the news and rushed out. I saw my brother sitting by the river crying. She couldn't hold back her tears, running and screaming. What are you doing? Are you crazy? She pulled him back, crying and yelling. What did you do that for? This house is ruined because of you. Man, he had a chance. Why didn't you let him go? Parents must be motivators for their children. It's not a roadblock. I've lived most of my life. Maybe you still don't understand the moral. The fight on the bridge. Become the focus of everyone around you. Koi's face flushed with anger, looking at Nam, then out loud. I'm old, and I'm old. You have to feed and nurture me. That's the moral you can't deny. When people on the road heard him, they all looked at him. Some people just say you're right. But at that moment, she came from the crowd. Her eyes lit up, her stiff voice cracked. It's true that old parents rely on their children, but the most important thing is to take care of yourself. No more trouble for your children. Parents can't worry about their children. Don't force them to sacrifice their lives. Her words were clear. Many people on the side of the road agree. An old man in the crowd spoke up. Yes, old age is an example. Whatever you can do, try to do it yourself. Don't rely too much on your children. They're already struggling out there. I just want to go home and have some peace. Another person continued. Healthcare. The spirit is to spend out there facing society. As a parent, don't put more pressure on your children. Let them be mentally healthy. To make money to feed the family. The old lady was lost because of anger. You living a selfish life with others is enough. Children must be free to fight, not be bound by their parents' selfishness. You think you love him, but you're hurting him. Koi stooped his face and could not say a word. She turned to Nam and patted his shoulder with tears. Boy, go away. Don't miss your future because of your father. You are right to worry about yourself. I'll take care of your father. Don't worry. My hybrid. He looked at her full of contradictions. I love you, but I also know I can't be held back forever, the way your son has been. But my dream, you never have a chance to do it. But finally look at Ren's puppet house. The South can't take responsibility. He looked back at father and sighed. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay and take care of you. I'm glad to hear that. She came over and patted Nam on the shoulder as a sympathizer. He's too good to worry about a father like this. I understand you're awkward, but that's the right decision. Nam just silent sprawl. I have to sacrifice for my father again. That night she sat on her chair, eyes that glow in the dark. In her head she had all the plans. To continue to take advantage of Nam and Koi. Nam watched his father sleeping in bed. The only thing left is boredom and fatigue. The next evening, man comes home after a stressful day at work. I walked into the house and felt the air. Koi lay on the hospital bed. Mrs. Van is sitting in the opposite chair. Wear a revealing two-string shirt. Short shorts are funny. Playing with the phone and yawning. Man is unmarried young man. I saw her dressed like that and kept going back and forth, hanging around the house. I don't know how. I feel uncomfortable and embarrassed. Stand up quietly. Go out of the way. But every time I get up, Mrs. Van deliberately bent over, back and forth right in front of you. It makes me even more disgusted. Nam, have you eaten rice? Don't just sit down to eat with your dad. Mrs. Van squinted and laughed, sweet but ironic voice. Nam just sighed and shook his head. I went to your house for a while and I wasn't hungry. I actually just want to avoid that itchy eye. I feel like I don't belong in this house anymore, even though this is where I grew up. Mrs. Heen was sitting outside the yard when she saw Nam enter. Your face is heavy. She laughed and poured Nam a cup of tea. You avoid her here, you know it all. His parents are so miserable. My children take care of me and suffer like this. Nam nodded his eyes. I don't know what to do anymore. I believe in her while she goes on. You see, I can't stand it. The silent grandmother does not know how to advise her children, but I can't say anything more. The shadow of the woman was outside the gate. Mrs. Van crept too, cool suit still on, peering over the fence. Nam, you're late. Go home. Daddy's waiting. Seeing Mrs. Van, my grandmother stood up and couldn't stand it anymore. She spoke in a cool but sarcastic voice. "What are you doing here? Are you going to continue your little game? My old body can't stand eating. Don't wear this ridiculous. You live like that without shame." Mrs. Van stalled a little, but still trying to keep a smug face. "Oh my God, you're so tough. Your house is full of people who know what to be afraid of. I think it's normal for me to wear this. Cool, comfortable. You must understand." She stood in the middle of the yard, looking straight at her. "Normal. There is a man who dares to leave. I'm not ashamed. I thought it was cool." Her face began to turn red, and then turned to the annoyance of a bitter retort. "What do you mean by that? What I wear is my right. It doesn't affect you." My grandmother did not back down, laughing. Her eyes seemed to turn on Mrs. "Take a look at yourself. Women get old and dress ridiculously revealing. They have an open summer cover. You keep showing it like this. I have a cold at home tomorrow." She started to get confused. "Your face is red, but you don't know how to respond." She was too ashamed to be angry. Turned his back to the rustling of clogs on the ground. My feet are soft, but in my heart full of warmth. The grandmother did not ignore. I looked at Theo with eyes full of sarcasm. "I have to remind you, Mrs. Beautiful, nothing yet seen. I just saw the meat. Be ashamed to die." She was so angry that she could not say a word. "Bite your teeth and go home and close the door." She turned her head to the south. "You see, she's just trying to take advantage of your father. You're young. My body is the main. Don't let your life be ruined because people like that." Nam bowed his head in silence. "I know your grandmother is right, but do so you can let go of your responsibility to your father." She sighed softly. "Man, I know you're worried about Daddy, but actually, my dad's fine. Small things at home. I'll take care of you. Don't miss the opportunity to go abroad this time. Young people once. If you don't catch it, you will regret it later." Nam looks at you. In my heart to express appreciation, Nam touched. "I really don't know why I'm worried about you. Afraid of you struggling." She smiled softly and clapped her hand gently on Nam's shoulder. "Don't worry about me. Taking care of your brother is your responsibility. Opportunity is not always there. If not this time, you'll regret it later about your father. Just let me take care of it. When I can visit my father, I'll be happy." Man sat still for a long time. The heart is heavy, but in my heart, I'm somewhat relieved. I know I need to take a chance. Not just for yourself, but for the future of your family. She gave me a bright path, helped me to do my duty. But I didn't lose my dream either. I looked at her in an emotional voice. "I thank you. I'll listen to you. Try not to offend you and your father." She nodded, her eyes looking proud. "A grown man thinks for his family, but don't forget yourself. I believe this is the right decision for my nephew's future and also the way to free South from unnecessary constraints." It was getting dark one day. Mr. Coy's house is quiet. Suddenly, there's the banging of the door. The harsh man's voice echoed in from the outside. "Open the door. Open the door right away." He was sitting watching TV when he stood up. You don't understand what happened. The banging on the door was getting louder and that is the sound. Profane screams from strange men. Mrs. Van sits in the room. Your face is pale. His eyes kept flipping back and forth to see the fear. She ran to the living room behind him, voice trembling. "They came to claim my debt. I borrowed money to take care of it. There's no ability to pay now. If you don't pay them, they'll kill you." When he heard it, he was shocked. You never thought that. The woman you trusted for so long, getting into debt again. The banging on the door was louder than the gangsters screaming. "Open the door quickly. We don't like to wait. If you don't pay your debts, don't blame us." He stepped out and opened the door. Immediately, two men walked in. He looked around the house with angry eyes. A man came in front of him with a loud voice. Didn't he ask her to pay? We're out of debt." He tried to stay calm, but the line was still shaking. "You guys calm down. Anything can be solved. How much money are you asking for?" The gangster grinned contemptuously. "How much is more than 300 million? She's gambling all over the place. If you don't pay her back, she won't be safe tonight." I heard that his face was more than 300 million. "I never knew you were in so much debt." "She is currently 7. Tears turned to Mr. Koi Van Shin. "I miss you. Now you help me. If you don't have money, they'll kill you. I can only rely on you. You've never seen her like that. You're in a situation where you don't know what to do." His heart was pounding with fear. "How long have you been used without knowing? You guys wait for me. I'll find a way to pay her back. Guys, give me a few days." The gangster immediately shouted loudly, "I gave you a few months. Don't mess with us. We don't have time for these cats." They're getting closer. A guy grabbed Mr. Koi's collar and pushed hard against the wall. "If you don't have money, don't open your mouth. Pay the debt immediately. Otherwise, don't expect to live with us." She knelt down in fear to the ground in tears. "Please, please save me. If you don't help me die." He looked at her with a sense of contradiction. "You know you've been cheated, but in this situation, you have no choice." He bit his teeth and nodded to the gangsters. "I'll take care of the money. Just give me a few days. I promise I'll pay all this money." The gangster thrashed his hand. Koi Ra cast contemptuous eyes and carried the voice. "We'll give you 3 days. If you can't pay, don't blame it. We give you 3 days. If you can't pay, don't blame us for being cruel." The husband turned his back and left. He and his wife were left in a quiet house. Koi sat flat in his chair, his hands trembling endlessly. How many emotions are in your heart? The pain and most importantly the feeling of being betrayed. That he trusted with all his heart. She is currently sitting on the floor, red eyes but still trying to look pathetic. "I'm so sorry. I don't want this to happen. I just want to worry about you, but then I miss you. Please don't leave me." Mr. Koi looked at Ms. Van. His face seemed to have no life. "You don't know what to do. There's no money to pay debts." The man who dared to face his son. "After knowing that I had let her lie for too long. But you still can't tell the truth. Maybe I should try to take care of this money. Then everything will pass. You don't want to lose your grandmother. Don't want to lose what you think is love." So long. After the gangsters left, he sits in a quiet house. She tried to hold on to his hand with tears in my eyes. There's no other choice. He had to go to his sister's rescue. The only person you think can help you right now. Although before that, she has repeatedly advised and warned about her. But he still holds out hope that my sister will love to help you through difficult times. It's late afternoon as he quietly walked to her front door. He knocked on the door, trembling hands. Grandmother opened the door. I saw my brother with a sad face, immediately frowned. Before he could speak, he hurriedly begged, "Save me with them to collect my debt. They're in gambling debt, and now the gangsters are asking for money. If they don't have money, they kill you. How much do you have? Give me a loan, and I'll pay it back." The grandmother stood staring up. "I can't believe what I just heard. After so many warnings, after how many times he yelled at me. The horse is used to the old road. I was deceived by that woman." The anger flared up. "You can't stay calm anymore," she yelled out in a loud voice full of anguish. "I think you are getting older and older. Old without wisdom. How many times have I told you about this woman? But you still won't listen. The kind that tricks you over and over again. You have a gambling debt and you still want to help. I can't wake up." He was silent before his sister's wrath, but still tried to plead with a weak voice. "Baby, I've got no one to rely on. Just help me this time, and I'll take care of it. If there is no money, it will die." When I heard this, my grandmother was even more angry. "What are you worried about? If he died, did you lose anything? Or are you afraid of losing? People have taken all your money. You wake up. Man's sweat and tears poured into this house, and then it's gone. Now you're running here. Ask me for a loan to repay it. There is no way." Coy stooped to gnaw his miserable voice. "You know you're wrong, but now I have no choice." She slammed her hands down on the table and yelled, "Wrong. Now you know you're wrong. That kind of woman like her. I was never honest with you. No time to live together. You still don't understand who he is. Now it's gambling debt. Gypsy Lake Gypsy fine to the house. You can still defend it. I'm not afraid of losing my life, but the boy has suffered so much with you. You let your son take care of you. What face is there to look at?" Coy's voice trembled as if dead. "But I need money urgently. Without money, they'll kill kidney feces." She stood up and looked straight into his eyes. A cold and determined voice. "Listen to me clearly. If you don't wake up, I'll get the neighborhood chief and the government involved. I can't let this go on. I didn't give you money. Pay off gambling debts for that kind of woman. Whether you listen or not depends. But I swear, if you're still involved with it, I'll make it right." He bowed his head and did not dare look into his sister's eyes. "Your self-respect is torn apart. Self-esteem has long since collapsed. You know my grandmother is right, but you still can't face the truth. You've lost all your money, the trust and respect of your children. Let's go home." Shaking hands and feet with shame and 7 hopes. After being slapped by her gentle grandmother, he returned home in great shame and fatigue. All his last hopes have fallen apart. Sitting quietly on an old wooden chair, he tried to think about what to do next. He used to believe in her feelings. Used to think, I still have support in the last days of my life. But it all fell apart like a soap bubble. "Mrs. Van, right now, I no longer have my usual gentle face. Look at the white hand coming back." She immediately showed a sour tone. "So you couldn't turn a dime all day? You guys have a little money, and you can't help it. It's useless." He looked at her with tired eyes. "I tried my best, but it didn't help." Hearing that, Mrs. Van immediately snapped. "You thought it was over. I've been following you for a long time. If anything, you left me to die. Who do you think you are? I can't do nothing in my life. If the money is out of debt, let me take care of it. I can't live with people like you." He bowed his head and could not say a word. The hard truth was finally revealed. But he no longer had the strength to react. "You just sit there," hands clenched into silent chairs in heartbreak. That night the house was unusually quiet. Coy lay on the bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, but the body is worn out with no energy left. The curses of Mrs. Van still echoing in your head, like a knife deep into the heart. Your whole life has been wrong, and now the price is too high. Mrs. Van is different. After you've said those nasty words, she didn't feel any remorse or compassion. There's only one thing in your head. Leave before it's too late. You know you're no longer worth taking advantage of. If you stay, the gangsters will find you. Then you'll have no way out. About midnight, when he fell into a tired sleep, she crept into his room. With familiar and skillful fingers, she searched everywhere. After a search, she discovered a small drawer where he hid the little money Nam sent back. Her eyes lit up when to see the bills rolled up neatly. There's not much left, but enough to go somewhere else. She grinned to herself. She collected all that money. Don't leave a note. Then quickly pack up your stuff. It all happens in neat and cruel silence. You don't have to say goodbye. There's no need to leave a message. The darkness enveloped her and walked out of the house. Leave it all behind. The door closed softly. It's like closing the years he once believed in love. And her fake care. The next morning he woke up. Your body is still tired after a sleepless night. He tried to stand up but felt something was wrong. The house is as quiet as a sheet. There was no sound of her footsteps. There is no familiar call. He staggers out of the lower room. When he looked around the house, he realized that she was gone. He opened the closet, and immediately it feels like a knife to Tim. All the money Nam sent back is gone. It's like a complete collapse. He collapsed in his chair. Open your eyes. Tears rise but can't fall. You've lost everything. And she didn't just take money. It takes away everything you once believed in and based on love. Interest, it's all a cover for a conspiracy to extract that you didn't realize until it's too late. He sat there in choking silence. An old man alone and betrayed. He sat quietly staring at the air. Bitterness invades the mind. His whole life from young to old have passed in the great mistakes that you didn't wake up. You've been lost in gambling. I've lost my family to waste. And now his old age. He was also robbed by his own blindness. Remember the old days. You feel heavy with regret. If you listen to your wife, save. Know how to keep the family. Maybe you didn't fall for this. I remember every time my wife cried, please stop gambling. Every time his son looked at him with 7 eyes. But all that advice, he put them all out of the ear. I think I know right and wrong. Now sitting alone, he realized how wrong I was. Young he was fooled by gambling. Old grandpa fooled by fake love. The loneliness that reigns in the empty house. You feel it clearly. The losses gnaw at my soul, little by little. All his life was empty and regretful. He remembered what his grandmother had said. You live your whole life not knowing you're wrong. You push those who love you away. It's too late now. You have no family. There's no money and no self-respect. His blindness brought him to the height of his suffering. And the price you pay is to lose everything. The price of indecision and fall into frivolous pleasures. It's loneliness and regret. In the last days of my life, after being cheated and abandoned by Ms. Van, you've been through a while, full of pain and regret from someone who had it all. He fell into the depths of loss and despair. But thanks to my grandmother's encouragement, with the help of Nam, he gradually found balance in his life through charitable activities. On volunteer trips with my grandmother, he happened to drop by a handicraft workshop. Hammer sound, chisel sound, and familiar wood smell. It reminded him of his golden age, when he used to be the owner of a large wood factory in Hadong, wood, which had been forgotten through the fallen years. Now suddenly alive again, he stood silently watching the workers working carefully hard, chiseled to create exquisite details on the furniture. His heart suddenly fluttered. Your fingers. How many exquisite products have been skillfully carved? Now it's shivering and weak, but in your heart, there's a familiar fire. The old lady saw him stop in front of the lumber mill, said softly, Koi, maybe you can go back to your old job. You have talent, don't let it go to waste. I used to love this job. Maybe it will help you find joy again. He paused a little and then nodded. Yeah, I think so too, but your hands are not as strong as they used to be. Can you still do it? She patted him on the shoulder and laughed warmly. Talent is never lost, just try again. Even if you are not as strong as before, but you can still make them what it means. Nam heard father's intention and enthusiastically supported. I found some acquaintances in the village to introduce Mr. Koi. They welcomed him back with respect, because in the carpentry world, Koi used to be a skilled master. At first, he only did small things, as a chiseling aid for simple details, or repaint old things. Every chisel, familiar movements from his youth, slowly come back to you, even though my hands are trembling and my eyes are dim. But when he touched the wood, he felt young again. Little joy, but the truth gradually kindled in him. One day, the owner handed him a small piece of wood and said, "Your skills are still very good. Try to make something for yourself. We support whatever you want to do." He smiled and took the wood home. For the first time in years, he made a work of his own. He chisels little by little. Every little detail appeared in his hands. Every touch, every cut. They carry the memories of the old days, when he was a talented carpenter. Top product. The first of his many years was a small statue. Simple but sophisticated. Look at the finished work. With eyes glistening with joy, for the first time he felt valued again. News of his return to the wood industry. Quick Lan Ra, old friends, the people in the village heard about it. They shared and invited him to participate in small projects. He also mentioned his past mistakes. It's just looking at talent and the passion that he had for the profession. He began to get more involved in the work, making handicrafts. No more ambition to make a lot of money. You just want to make meaningful stuff as a way to give back to life what you've lost. His products, from small wooden figurines to the exquisite wooden boxes, they all carry the soul of one. I've made too many mistakes, and now I find myself again. His life gradually returned to peace. You don't think much about what you lost, but focus on the present. Every day he gets up early. Start a new day with a carving job. Of your products, they're not great works though, but they brought him joy and comfort. Nam saw that he gradually regained his joy and was more assured. The whole family at last find peace after the waves of life. An afternoon with his grandmother came to visit him. All three sat under the trees in the yard. Enjoy a cup of fragrant tea in the soft sunset. My father was different. Face no longer melancholy and tired. Instead, it's a quiet serenity. The last koi, I have found peace in my soul. What you've lost your whole life. She smiled and looked at him gently. The old man had a bad word. When people are free, it's easy to give birth to bad things. Only when labor, live with passion and work effectively, the soul is safe. You see, now I know what it means to work, help others. My heart is so much lighter. He nodded softly, a deep but soft voice. You're right. Living without anything to do, there is no passion. It is easy for the mind to fall into ordinary things. How many years did it take you to realize that? Now I see doing small things, help those around you, creating meaningful things with your hands. This is the most precious thing. She smiled gently and looked to the south to continue. That's right. People don't live just to enjoy themselves. You have to know how to live effectively, especially in old age. Live happy, live healthy, live useful really fully. I now understand that. And so to bless your children. Kind and gentle parents. Children look at and follow. It's not just about leaving money, it's about leaving grace. He looked at me with eyes full of admiration. I know that. Life has taught my father a great lesson, and he found himself again. In the last years of his life. Dad, you're right. Happy living, healthy living is the most important thing. I see now you've found your joy again, through the jobs I love. And that makes me happy. I just hope you stay healthy. Continue to live peacefully as you do now. He laughed, his eyes filled with emotion, and looked at his son. I understand, Nam. I live for kindness, for meaning. Not just to be an example, but also to find yourself useful in life. Over a cup of warm tea, he clearly felt the peace in his heart. You are no longer looking for happiness from the faraway vanities, but from the simple things themselves. It's a meaningful job. They have sincere relationships and peace of mind. Dear friends, life is short or long. They all have to be lived happily, healthy, and helpful. When people know how to work, know how to love and live sincerely, don't just keep your soul clean. It also leaves blessings for our children. Find joy in your own work. Just being busy with meaningful things, we can avoid temptations and mistakes. Live a kind life. It's about leaving sustainable value for the next generation. It is the greatest asset of a lifetime. Dear friends, the short story is over. Remember to subscribe, like and share support for Quine Wong. Hello, and see you and friends again. In the series, it will be broadcast on the channel. Hello, and see you later.